Welcome everyone to this River Publishers book discussion. I'm Philippa Jeffries and I have with me today Lyndon Marshall to talk about his forthcoming book, Practical Insecurity, The Layman's Guide to Digital Security and Digital Self-Defense, which is a part of our new series of short River Rapids books. So welcome Lyndon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Can you please start by introducing yourself a little bit and the book?
Okay. Well, I suppose the relevant things that folks would like to know or probably should know about what's going on is the fact that this is a product of a whole bunch of years that I've been in various different aspects of the computer industry.
Mm-hmm.
Part of which time I was a network engineer / network administrator. And as such, one of the things that you get to see in that environment is the fundamental silly ways in which people will behave with regard to the use of computer technology, particularly with regard to, well, security. And fundamentally, one of the things that happens also is that inevitably you become kind of a, I don't know, father confessor with regard to people telling you their own adventures also with their own computer systems. And as such, having been a network engineer in those particular types of environments, this is in some ways my own reflections upon trying to protect my networks and also trying to help people when they came to me and said, what do I do in my own situation with regard to my own adventures? And so here we have it. Basically, the book is not oriented toward technical types. It is oriented, as the title implies, the layman. It is something that is meant to remind them of some of the things that they need to keep in mind with regard to protecting themselves, protecting their information, protecting their privacy as they make use of different manifestations of computer technology.
Great, thank you. And to kick off, in your experience, what are some of the kind of most frequent or key basic security things that people get wrong that you have come across?
Well, I think one of the most basic things that people do is they don't keep their equipment, their software, their hardware updated.
Okay.
An awful lot of problems come into computer systems because applications are not updated, operating systems are not updated. Both of those are real sources of issue. A lot of times people, for example, will go through their computing day and they'll get this message of, for example, Java needing to update. And as such, they have a tendency, I know, saying this, that I've had a tendency to just click through the cotton picking message. Well, an awful lot of the time, problems come into computer systems through unupdated software. So when your computer wants to update, for heaven's sakes, let it update. Yeah. That would be one of my biggest issues with regard to trying to keep things like viruses. It's not necessarily a virus that's going to end up causing you problems. It's your own foolishness in terms of how you handle yourself and your information on the web too. People are way too willing, for example, to for example, in email, when they get something, they'll click on something and they'll try and take advantage of or go to a website and get a free offer. And one of the things that's a huge problem in all that is that creates an inherent pathway to attack you and your systems from the basic act, for example, of, what's the price that they ask for a lot of these different so-called free services? You
Mhm.
share your email.
Mhm.
And in sharing your email, you're sharing your email with that person and with all their different quote unquote business partners.
Yeah.
And that becomes a real serious issue. Once they have that, there's an inherent value. You get spam email from them, you get spam email from their, again, business partners.
Mhm.
So not guarding yourself and not guarding your information is a real, again, another serious issue.
Mhm. Okay, that's interesting what you say. How much do you think of security really comes down to a person and their kind of security awareness of what they're doing?
I think that's a major portion of it.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, one of the phrases I use in the book, I don't exactly remember where, is the phrase, that which we do to ourselves. And an awful lot of the problems that are created by our own lack of awareness, lack of engagement, lack of regarding ourselves as somebody or something who should take an active role in terms of protecting themselves and their own
Mhm.
information. Uh, One of the things that people do quite a bit of, for example, is sharing images of themselves and their family on things like social media. And I'll
Mhm.
be frank with you, I think that is a real bad mistake for themselves, and ultimately it's going to be a problem for their children, because a lot of folks are not realizing that there are tools like image scrapers, bots that roam the internet and take
Mhm.
images, and they take that little tidbit that you've posted and they save that information, and you know without any volition, that people then have images and information and data about themselves being garnered and gathered and agglomerated by various different applications over the internet.
Mhm.
So, so those are issues and things that you should be concerned about. You
Mhm.
know, basically, if somebody comes and you had not engaged with them, for example, you and I in our business dealings, okay, we've
Mhm.
had to exchange information. In that particular environment, that's fine. But if you have an unsolicited request for your email or
Mhm.
whatever, click on this, you should be very skeptical of it. Don't
Yeah.
just share information with anybody who comes your way asking you for whatever it happens to be. Think 3 times and then
Okay.
probably don't do it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I wanted to move on to next, was now we've talked about some of the issues and security issues people have. Um, you touched on this a couple of times with like updating and thinking about emails that you just get sent. But yeah, if someone is looking to start improving their cybersecurity, where should they start? What kind of practices should they think of first adopting?
Well, one of the things that I would recommend is don't be paranoid, but be actively engaged.
Okay.
Realize that the internet is, for all intents and purposes, the Wild West.
Hmm.
You have all kinds of people that come at you from almost any direction, trying to get information from you, trying to get you to do whatever. And in that
Hmm.
particular process, uh, if you're actively engaged and are completely thoroughly aware of the fact that there's inherently lots of different things that can come your direction from almost anywhere. I guess
Hmm.
I would say mild paranoia, not extreme, but
Hmm.
realize that you do need to be actively engaged. You do need to update. You do need to have antivirus. You do need to whatever it happens to be. Don't just take the attitude that so many people have, so many, well, for example, older adults, which is I don't want to know about it.
Hmm.
I just want to use it. You hear that phrase all the time. Well, you really do need to know a little bit about it. You need to know the fact that there are things like crypto miners out there that can be deposited on your computer if you don't have your computer protected and you get a virus and they install things like a crypto miner or a keylogger or whatever the hell it
Hmm.
happens to be. Those are things that can happen to you all too easily, and by being actively engaged, making sure that your systems are updated, making sure that you don't respond to things such as people soliciting information from you where they really don't have any business soliciting information from you.
Hmm.
Those are all kinds of things that are part of the mixture.
Yeah.
Again, my phrase is active engagement.
Hmm. It can be tricky though, right, sometimes when you get unsolicited emails or messages where they have been quite clever or quite sneaky in the way they phrase it, that it looks legit, right?
Oh,
You're
there
constantly getting messages from our banks and things being like, be careful, we won't ask you for money to XYZ, but it can be tricky sometimes to spot the fakes.
it can be extremely tricky. I will admit freely and openly that I've been caught.
Hmm.
They are very good at times in terms of trying to represent themselves as somebody who is in your life. Uh,
Hmm.
I got caught one time by something that appeared to be my own boss, and what they had done
Oh, wow.
is that they had gone out there and they had researched, and they sent this email to me pretending to be my own supervisor. And foolishly, I did what they requested, which was clicking on the link. And by clicking
Hmm.
on the link, I was fortunate in the fact that basically all they did at that particular point was they confirmed a good email address. I went through afterwards and did a thorough check of my system, making sure that there was no viruses installed.
Hmm.
But it could have been a lot worse,
Yeah.
and I should have known better.
Hmm.
But so you're right; it's very easy for somebody to be caught very easily. And it happens all the time, even to so-called quote unquote experts.
Yeah.
So see, one of the things that I recommend to people is the fact that there's some advantages in security through obscurity.
Hmm.
I generally speaking recommend that folks stay away from the catchy handles on things like social media or various different websites that you use. Basically, keep yourself as plain as vanilla flavored as possible because at the end of the day, uh, the skills of things, for example, like hackers, you know, if they
Hmm.
want you, they're going to get you.
Yeah.
Okay. There's the famous story. I don't remember the exact company. It's been a few years ago, but this guy went out there and he threw out the challenge to say, "Well, I'm so and so. I'm this major cybersecurity expert, and you're not going to get me." Well, guess what? They got him.
Yeah.
It
You put a
actually
big
was,
target on his back.
yeah, basically painted a target on his back. They had him within 15 minutes,
Hmm.
and he supposedly had himself armored to the gills. Well, no, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So, yeah, security through obscurity. Um, Keeping yourself low profile,
Hmm.
keeping your software updated, making sure that you have antivirus. Well, now a lot of folks, oops, sorry about that. I
Hmm.
hit my knee against my desk. Uh, a lot of folks will say, well, I have a Mac or I have a Linux. I don't need antivirus. And the answer is, well, yeah, those are more resistant to viruses typically than is, for example, a Windows-based system, which, interestingly enough, that's what I'm on right now. But you need to realize that that it's a issue of the amount of risk that you're willing to assume. I mean, a lot of these end up being personal calculations. For the most part, Macs and Linux systems are way more resistant, but they're not immune. So, if I'm doing typical everyday computing on a Mac, I might get by without having antivirus on my system. But if I'm running a server, an enterprise-based piece of equipment that a whole bunch of people are dependent upon, yeah, you bet. If my business is dependent upon that system, yeah, I have it armored up as fully as I can get, and I include antivirus on that.
Definitely, and it only takes once, right? One email, one link.
And inevitably, we're going to get that one email. We're going to get that one link.
Yeah.
So
I guess a big part of it also is knowing how to react, or even just spot that that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I see, for example, again with older adults, I guess I kind of focused in on them, is the fact that a lot of them will get click happy. They'll get impatient. The computer doesn't respond like they think it should, and so they start clicking on stuff, and they don't really look at what it is they're clicking. And one of the key things that I strongly recommend to people is, number one, always read the links. Number two, in general, if you are dealing with a link that's been sent you, whatever it is, and you really feel the need to follow the link, copy it and paste it. And then read it before actually using the link.
That is a good tip.
Yeah, there is nasty stuff that can be embedded in a link, and if you are not reading them and asking yourself the basic question, does this make sense? Or is somebody trying to lead me somewhere place that I don't want to be?
Definitely. Right, I'm afraid I have to interrupt because we're coming to the end of our time. But would you like to just finish by talking a little bit about what you would like people to take away from this book?
I would like them to realize that a lot of personal security is actually a process of critical thinking. That you shouldn't do anything without asking yourself, does this make sense? And one of the big ones is there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, that applies to computing too. And be skeptical is, I guess, how I would encapsulate it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Lyndon. Congratulations on finishing your book. I will put the link down below for anyone interested to reading further. And yeah, thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you, Philippa. I very much enjoyed it.